It's an alignment chart. Okay then. Okay, we're gonna measure these by these categories, by consistency and how hard it is to play, because we already done like kind of a tier list last week. So we're gonna talk about how, you know, just rate how consistent they are versus also how hard it is to play these decks. Now, these will be measured relative to other overdress decks, so I'm not gonna say this deck is so damn easy because this is just standard right now. If I play a premium deck, it's gonna be so much harder. But no, just relative to each other, right? So there's like not really any right answer, I guess, in this, because it's not really like it's not really a tier list, right? It's not saying like, you know, this is the strongest deck, blah, blah, blah. It's basically just saying how these decks kind of play. And these are kind of the two metrics that I think, to me at least, determine how I want to actually, if I want to play this deck or not, right? I guess if you were to play like a dumb and inconsistent deck, you'd probably go like, maybe I wouldn't want to play that, but, you know, it's up to you. So first of all, we can rate Hexorp, right? Hexorp, I don't think you need to have a big brain to play Hexorp, but it's definitely not like a super dumb deck to play, right? But also in terms of consistency, I personally think it's not as consistent as basically everything else. So I think it's like somewhere here, right? Somewhere here, you know, bottom left area. Yeah, I think that's probably right. Talking about Bastion, I think this is like, you know, definitely somewhere probably here. You really don't need to be very smart to play Bastion at all. You can just, but it's very consistent in what it does, right? It's just turn things sideways, trigger, bam. Like you hardly need any input in the deck for it to pop off. So yeah, I think top left, basically at the top left is where it should be. Right, Zorgo, I think, Zorga, you have to say Zorga, right? It's not an L. So Zorga, I think you need a bit more of a brain to play Zorga, right? You need to kind of figure out what you need to do, think about how your play works, at least. So it's definitely on the right side of it. Consistency-wise, it comes down to the orders, right? I think I might put it just slap in like mid, right? It's not super consistent in that like you can always pull off its game plan every single game. At the same time, it's not like it's terribly inconsistent, because, you know, you've got to, you can decide what to put in your deck, and then based on that, it'll just come down to if you hit your targets or not, if you mill the correct thing. So maybe it's slightly inconsistent, maybe like this, maybe somewhere here. But then I think it's like way more consistent versus like a Hexorp, because you can kind of consistently pull off like big columns, right? Which is what you want. So I think in the mid, smack bang right in the mid, like right around here. Maybe it's a bit bigger brain. Maybe just up here. That's about right. Orphist. Okay, I definitely think you don't need a big brain to play Orphist at all. It's a very simple deck. I guess it's kind of consistent, because what can really go wrong with Orphist, right? You don't really need specific parts to pull up. I guess the only parts you need are your world. If you don't get your second world, you feel really bad, and your game plan becomes absolute trash. But it's not really hard to get your second world. You basically just need to mulligan one world, and then your ride line will get the other, and you're set. So I think it's relatively consistent. Is it the same level as it could be dumber than Bastion, right? It could be easier to play than Bastion. Maybe Bastion's not move Bastion up a bit, you know, because you have to at least plan out some of your grade 3 plays and stuff like that. Orphist, you don't really need to plan out much, right? You can just go ham. The order just, when you play, it draws 1, right? So not much interaction there. The most you have is your entire opponent's stuff, or way to play your grade 3 that attacks an entire column. So yeah, I think it's like probably just here. It's like very easy to play the deck. It's also consistent, but it's not like you do need specific pieces rather than Bastion not needing specific pieces. So yeah, probably around here. Well, I think that's about correct. Bruce is like pretty much the opposite of Bastion. I think it's like I think it's pretty consistent as well. You need more of a brain to play it. I know people screw up their protoball plays and things like that. So I think you actually do need to kind of plan out your turns a bit more than Bastion. And you need to be able to plan out how you're gonna do your attack orders, how you're gonna set up your field, and then how aggressive you want to be early. Because I think the biggest weakness that a lot of Bruce players do is that they believe their deck doesn't do anything until turn 4 or their second grade 3, right? Which is true. A lot of their effects don't work, but that doesn't mean you play boringly in the early game. You still have to put on aggression, although it's vanilla aggression, but that just comes down to Vanguard fundamentals. So overall, I think it is it's a pretty consistent deck. It just consistently goes off every game. The requirements for it to hit those soul counts are not hard to hit at all, and they just will consistently make decent powered columns. And you can always kind of grab your, as long as you have a protobomb, you can kind of grab your like Persona Rise and all that. So I think it's a very consistent deck. It's definitely one of the more consistent deck. Maybe put it up here. You know, you need. I guess I should move Zorgo a bit up. It's a bit more. I get Zorgo is like clunkier to play. Bruce, kind of. I think it's around here. I think around here is around 5. Okay. Eugene. Eugene is a very, very consistent deck. It's consistently bad. So I think I don't know what to say about Eugene. Like, I think we're all in agreement that Eugene is the worst deck in the format. In terms of how hard it is to play, it's hard to play because everything is like just annoying to play as well, right? Because so it's like probably here, you know, you kind of have to play the odds a bit. You have to learn how to save your cards, when to push, because your quality of cards is awful, right? And then in terms of consistency, it's just inconsistent, you know. Your gimmick itself is already very inconsistent, so you can go bottom right, is that right? Okay, Nirvana is like, you have to draw arcs, so that in itself is really annoying. But it's not very hard to play either, so it could definitely not be here. And it definitely won't be middle, because it's definitely easier to play than most. It's really easier to play than Hexorp, right? I think maybe Hexorp, move Hexorp to a bit right. Nirvana can be like here, and then how consistent is it? Drawing arcs is pretty annoying. Let's just put it here. Yeah. I mean, I think it's slightly more consistent than Hexorp, but is it? Yeah. Slightly more consistent than Hexorb, I guess, because you have to still get the arcs. But otherwise, I guess you can push like Virina and Valientes, and that's okay, but put it down a bit. Baru Magnus. Okay, Baru Magnus. What do I do about this thing, man? Baru Magnus, like, I think Baru Magnus is you don't need to be smart to play Baru Magnus, because all you need to do is be able to count like to 10 and 15, right? At the same time, I wouldn't put it in the consistent. I don't think it's consistent, right? I think you can consistently hit 10. Hitting 15, first off, is not consistent. I don't think you can consistently hit on 15. I know people say I hit 15 all the time, but I don't think they're real. I don't think that people are real, right? So it's much more stable to not hit 15. At the same time, it's like you kind of just get, you can get like monstered pretty hard by any deck that can kind of keep up with you, right? So I don't know. Is this a consistent deck, or is it an inconsistent deck? I kind of want to put in the inconsistent bit. I want to put in the bottom left. But I mean, is it more inconsistent than Hexorp? It wins though. It wins, so it has to be rather consistent, right? So I think it should be here. I think it should be. Like, you can't be, like, technically you can't be more consistent than Orphist, right? Because Orphist game plan is just so simple. It's just consistent, it just does everything, right? While, I guess it's pretty similar to Nirvana in a way. Like, Nirvana, you have to draw arcs. Baru Magnus, actually, Baru Magnus, you can kind of draw anything to get enough soul. So I'll put it up here. All right. And then, what is this one? It's Magnolia. So Magnolia, I think you do need a smarter brain to play Magnolia. It's a bit hard to play. Overall, it's a clunky deck, right? So I think you have to be very, very careful with your resources. At the same time, is it really consistent? I don't think it's that consistent. I think it's like not consistent, because you're dependent on drawing your Persona right to be able to make that big wombo combo play, right? You can make attacks early, but it's not really that. I mean, anything can make attack silly, and they have better resource management. So I have to say, it's definitely inconsistent, but it's hard to play. How hard is to play? I don't think it's as... I think it's... Maybe I should be moving Bruce a bit down, and I can put Magnolia, like, past Bruce, because it's probably annoying to play. Consistency-wise, I put it, like, down here, right? Because the games where you don't draw your persona right is absolute garbage. The games where you don't get any early aggression on is absolute garbage. So, I mean, there's newer builds of Magnolia popping up. I think the list is kind of nearly solved, I guess. So maybe this will move up a bit more. But right now, I think the deck is consistent. I'm not a huge fan of Magnolia, in my opinion. So, yeah. And then lastly, we've got Prison. Right, Prison. So where does Prison go? Prison, you can always get off your Prison pretty much, because it's just searchable. So that's the consistency of that is very nice, right? So I guess, like, the Prison game plan in imprisoning people is very consistent. And then in terms of big brain, I personally don't think you need that much of a big brain to play. It's very simple, right? You play down the cards, you put your opponents to prison. It's your opponent that needs, like, a brain to go, do I need to get those cards out of prison? What cards am I putting into prison? Etc. So from the perspective of a player, I don't think Prison is that much of a big brain deck. I think it's like probably somewhere here, right? It's pretty much cards just kind of going brew. Or maybe do you want to just put in the middle? You know, it's like oh, it can't be in the middle. It's kind of consistent, right? So it's like here. I think it's like somewhere here. Versus like brand geek decks are a kind of consistent, like same consistency. You know, the game plan is very simple, but overall, actually, it's so simple. They might as well be next. Yeah. How? It's like super consistent, and is it easier to play? How easy is it to play? I guess like when your opponent starts denying you, it can be very annoying to play. You'd have to somehow conserve your resources a bit. So maybe it's like somewhere here. Maybe I think here is around correct, right? It's not like Hexorp is very easy to play. I guess it's similar to Hexorp. I guess, you know, in the amount it's not as easy to play as Nirvana. So I guess around this is fine. So here, like as we can see, this is the alignment chart of consistency and how hard it is to play decks. So overall, yeah. Let me know what you guys think. Where things should be. Should more things be in the bottom left? Or, you know, should certain decks be smarter? I think like I think in terms of smartness, I think these decks are kind of correct. You know, you don't need a big brain to play these decks at all. But in terms of, I guess, consistency, I guess that's up in the eye of the beholder, right? It's up to you. It's up to you. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye.